From ancient times to present day, many power changes have taken place in regions worldwide. Different empires come and go, boundary lines are ever changing, but Egypt has remained constant throughout. Occupying an integral piece of land, Egypt is the hub between Africa, the Mediterranean, and the Middle East. Desirable for many reasons, people still fight to control Egypt, her great expanse, and the fruits of the land. At the beginning of its settlement, Egypt was rather self-contained due to its fertility and prime positioning. When you think of early civilizations, many had to branch out and take over new lands to acquire space and resources for their people. With an abundance of both, Egypt was one of the least warlike countries of the ancient world. Adhering to strict burial practices was highly important to Egyptian culture. Venturing to new lands or engaging in battle afar only increased the risk of being killed, left on foreign soil, and buried improperly, if at all. This could mean no afterlife, which potentially could last longer or be more important than time spent on Earth. Hiring mercenaries was common practice for handling matters in different regions. For these reasons, the early Egyptians didn't form much of an armed force. While they were content staying at home on their land, others had different plans for Egypt. The neighborhood was far from friendly, and there was a constant threat of invasion. At some time or another, the Persians, Greeks, Romans, Assyrians, and the Hyksos would all invade and occupy Egypt. Quite often these groups outclassed the Egyptians with superior tactics and weaponry. The big eye-opener for Egypt was the Hyksos occupation of the Second Intermediate Period. After finally kicking the Hyksos out of their land, Egypt realized they needed an organized military. The period of the New Kingdom really marked this organization, and for the first time in Egypt's history, they put together an army of full-time professional soldiers. Fortification was paramount for their new line of thinking. It was time to strap down the borders and install better fortresses at important locations, and especially along their blood and lifeline, the Nile. The new and improved fortresses had brick walls 6 to 8 meters thick and were reinforced with timber logs. They would also dig deep ditches around the sides. These forts would help control river traffic and keep watch of invasion on surrounding lands. It was also time for an arsenal upgrade. Early Egyptian bows were made only from wood that was springy or had some kind of rebound to it. The newer models were more complex, compound bows with different layers of horn and tougher wood that was sometimes covered in bark. They would then curve the bows and fashion them in regular size or as long bows for greater range. The arrows went from being made of hardwood with no stone tip to having copper heads that were much more effective. They would also have different types of heads, like flat wooden tips to stun upon impact, or sharp barbed tips for deep flesh wounds. The Egyptians were known as great archers of their time. Hunting for food and sport was a popular pastime. They would use a bow and arrow, like many still do today, to hunt local game like gazelle, ibex, birds, or even lions. These skills were often acquired at a young age and were sharpened through the years. This would help those moving into the ranks as archers. Other skills would be taught during a soldier's initial training, which was somewhat comparable to boot camp. The training was very harsh, and recruits would endure random beatings, but this would be good preparation for the even harsher reality of life on the field. A soldier was expected to find their own bread and water, even if they had to steal it. One might go weeks at a time without a proper meal. In the infantry division, you could expect to march around 15 miles a day wearing sandals while carrying a staff or club and a sack of your belongings. If they went into battle, the sandals came off. Fighting barefoot was the thing. But feet weren't the only things that were exposed, as there was no body armor for these soldiers. The best they could hope for was a quilted leather jerkin or vest, and if they were lucky enough, perhaps a shield. A soldier would rely on their strength and quickness over everything to stay alive in battle. When it came to field weapons, simplicity was important. The soldiers would often have to use what they could find, which led to clubs, cudgels, and hardened rods being popular for close fighting, with the aim to make crushing blows on the opponent. These weapons were cheap and easy to come by, which was important. With combat being the way it was, you could lose a life quickly, and it didn't make sense to outfit soldiers with fancy or expensive equipment. Battle axes, scimitars, and daggers for last-ditch efforts to stay alive were also common. While things got messy for the infantry, archers and officers would play the rear, launching javelins, spears, and arrows from their longbows. After the battle, They would count the dead by severing and gathering hands, or in some cases genitalia, to be carried back for the official count. Somewhat like today's army, once you're in, there's no quitting. If soldiers tried to run away, their family would be thrown in jail until their return. The only way to make it out of the infantry was by death or promotion. There are parallels found in today's armies, as soldiers need to make their tours of duty. Sometimes it seems like the duty is never done. As time goes on, different groups and parties still fight for power, but no matter who's at the wheel, the heart and soul of Egypt lies in the beauty of the land, the history that lies there, and the spirit of the people.